Have you ever wondered what you would get if you crossed a school teacher with a vampire hunter? You would get a character that almost always has a plan, rarely curses, but is willing to rip your heart out. The fantasy novel Blood and Magic by R.L. Collins has been released on Amazon and Barnes& Noble. Selina Anderson is a small-town teacher with a big-time problem with vampires who are out to kill her before she can make them her next meal. She is looking forward to a quiet, lazy summer in Culpeper, Virginia. At least this is her plan until three strangers enter her life in one day. Welcome to podcast episode 16. In this episode, Selina and the Guardians attempt to launch a surprise attack on vampires in Morrisville, Virginia. We spent much of the next night training and doing drills for our mission. We went over the floor plans of the mansion in Morrisville until we knew them like the backs of our hands. Everyone except for Lincoln and Missy were going. Lincoln was still on crutches and would be an asset at Command Central. He could monitor the surveillance devices around the nest and keep us informed of any surprises. About an hour and a half before dawn, we pulled up to a campsite a mile from the vampire nest. We hid our cars and hiked the rest of the way in through the woods. We were all dressed commando style in shades of black and gray. Weapons crisscrossed our bodies. Some of the men carried backpacks full of more toys to use on the vampires. The woods led right up to the back of the mansion. It was a very old antebellum home. It must have been grand and beautiful in its day, but it had fallen into disrepair. The surrounding gardens were yellowed and choked with weeds. According to the intelligence from Tomlin, all the vampires had returned for the day and should be settling down inside. We spread out to cover the exits. Devlin, the Jew, and I would go into the back door near the kitchen. John and Abe would slip under the cover of darkness and go in through the main entrance in the foyer. Chow, Duncan, and Maxine would hike it to the balcony entrance on the east side of the house and canvass upstairs. Gerald and Tomlin would cover the entrance by the carport and cover the west wing. At the back entrance, Devlin brought out a sleek kit of tools to begin picking the lock. Jew tried the knob and found that it was unlocked. That earned him a scowl from Devlin, however he just shrugged and smirked. We crossed the threshold into the kitchen that was almost decrepit. It was a large kitchen, a chef's dream, many, many years ago. Spider webs hung from the cabinets and nets of gray matter. Mice had taken over the pantry with its old dry goods. Their nests tumbled out from in between dry, rotted boxes and swollen canned goods. Kids from the surrounding community had thrown baseballs through the windows. Shattered glass littered the countertop. This also made a way for birds and other animals to come in and make themselves at home. Devlin whispered into his earpiece that the kitchen was all clear. We cautiously waded our way through the kitchen into the next room. The dining room looked ghostly as most of the furniture was covered in white sheets. There was a table in the center that was large enough to sit a clan of people. There was a painting on the far wall over the fireplace of a family of 6. Perhaps it was the original family. The only part of the painting that had not faded into oblivion were the eyes of the father figure. Those eerie eyes followed us as we inspected the dining room and moved on. In the sitting room were more broken windows that had let in the elements and vermin. Some of the protective covers had been displaced by bulging animal nests padded with stuffing from the furniture itself. We began to navigate our way around the once elegant furniture to the main hall of the house, only to find our way blocked by a vampire. "Food delivered to our doorstep," he hissed. Devlin hit him with the silver net that wrapped him from head to toe. The fiend dropped to the ground, shuddering and mute. His system could not take that much silver and continue to function normally. Jew dragged our package into the foyer. There we met with John and Abe covered in plant debris and dirt. They had caught 2 more vampires in silver netting. We were piling our prisoners into the expansive hall closet when we heard rustling and thumping upstairs. We aimed our weapons ready to catch whoever was coming, only to see Chow, Duncan, Maxine descending the great Gone with the Wind style staircase. Each had a stunned vampire in tow. We added them to our collection in the hall closet. Gerald and Tomlin joined us empty-handed. Devlin led us down the length of the mansion to a solitary aged oak door with rusty hinges. It was the door to the cellar, the vampire daytime sleeping lair. We had not been able to plant surveillance in this part of the house. We were going in blind. Devlin opened the door slowly. It revealed a wooden staircase leading down into a pit of darkness. We put on our infrared goggles so we'd be able to see without using light. With our night vision in place, we descended the stairs one by one. The air was considerably cooler as we traveled downward. Summer's hot grasp had not been able to reach as far. I trailed a hand along the stone wall encasing the stairs. It was mossy and damp from water damage. A spider web tangled in my hair, and I swiped it away. The only sound I could hear was my own breathing that sounded harsh in the silence of the dead. We finally came to the end of the stairs and fanned out. It was like a classic vampire crypt. Coffins of various designs were spread out around the cellar. The vampires that were captured upstairs had left their lids open, so it was easy to see those that were empty. We assumed the rest were occupied and stealthily moved around the crypt to take position by a coffin. Devlin gave the signal, and we each lifted the lids of our respective coffins. The monster inside mine was an African-American man with shoulder-length dreads. He was instantly startled awake and snarled at me, baring his teeth. He made a move to rise, and I threw my silver net around him. He groaned and surrendered to the silver-induced coma. There was tussling and struggling around me as some of the vampires tried to fight their capture. The younger vampires never even opened their eyes, and they succumbed earlier to the sleep of the dead. Maxine's vampire was old. I rushed to help her subdue the ancient as he tried to bite his way through the silver netting. I jabbed 2 silver stakes into him. One stake went into the neck, and the other into his chest, just missing his heart by mere inches. The metal quickly worked its way into his blood, and the old one's body tensed until he was almost frozen in time. Our next task was to haul the vampires upstairs. We lugged them upstairs like sacks of potatoes. By the time we were done, we were almost taxed and sweating profusely. However, there was more work to be done. Dawn was minutes away. We lined up our vampires in front of the doors to the terrace on the first floor. They watched us with angry, glaring eyes. However, a few were confused. The sun was trying to make its way over the hazy horizon. We were careful to keep the fiends out of the sun's reach. The majority of the team fanned out behind our vampire prisoners. Devlin, as the Jew, strung up an unlucky vampire between them. He was 40-ish and graying at the temples. He even had a little paunch around the middle. Devlin reached in between the silver mesh to pull out the man's wrist. He slit it quickly with a silver knife, then offered me the man's arm. The blood welled up around the wound, and it spilled over to drip on the scarred wooden floor. I detested what I was about to do, but it must be done for the greater good. The instant my mouth closed around the wound, I felt the power infuse me. I reached out to the vampires in the room. They clicked and slid into place like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. I knew every vampire in the room. The name, how he died the first time, how he lived his undead life. All eyes were on me. Dawn had arrived. Ryan, I said in a voice that didn't sound like my own. I cleared my throat and spoke up to make sure that all present could hear me. You will walk into the sun. Saju and Devlin released Ryan and snatched the netting off of him. He turned around and walked steadily to the terrace door. He turned the knob easily and walked out across the overgrown lawn. The sun's rays hit his skin, and he began to smoke. With each step, more smoke wafted from him. His exposed skin turned red and blistered. Tiny flames erupted on his arms, and he dropped to the ground. He crawled on all fours. After another yard, his body exploded into a mess of flesh and bones. I turned back to my captive audience. The stares I received were no longer angry. They were fearful. I am Selina. I am the one that Marcus has been searching for. You band together with him to enslave humans. Your biggest desire is for easy food. What you should strive for is to stay alive and be free yourselves. You see that I can make you do the unthinkable. I have a task for all of you. Some of the vampires began twitching as the sun's rays climbed across the floor. I want you to bring me Marcus. Discover his daytime lair. Capture him and bring him to me. If you succeed, you will remain free. If you fail, I will have you join your friend Ryan in the sun, or perhaps I can have you tear and drink from your own wrist until you are dry and truly dead. I turned to the team and said, release them. I heard a clapping at the top of the stairs. At the same time, I felt another presence in the mansion. It felt like a cold, dark stain. I ran to the foot of the stairs in time to see a figure descending in shadow. Show yourself, I demanded. Then he came into the light. Ah, Selina, so you wish to be top dog, Marcus growled at me. Chapter 10. I could feel Marcus's fury. I was still full of vampire blood, and I reached out to his mind. His steps faltered. I knew it was coming. Arm yourselves and fight, I shouted to the others, just as people swarmed in from various entrances of the house. Marcus had brought humans to fight for him. I willed the vampires to fight for their lives against the humans. They were shouting and yelling all around us. Body parts were hitting the floor. My mind-controlled vampires easily tore into the flesh of Marcus's men. My team was also fighting. Marcus meant to kill us all. Seeing my control over the vampires, Marcus fled upstairs and I followed him. I threw my cache of blades at him, but he was supernaturally fast and dodged them all. I connected with the nearest vampires in the room and had them follow up to the second story of the mansion. Turn and face me, I yelled at Marcus. He ran into a bedroom and stood in front of a large bay window. Why aren't you burning? I demanded to know. I am of the Pox people. I am immortal. Impossible. Yet you see for yourself that I do not burn in the sun's rays. I silently commanded my vampire team to surround him and take hold of him. However, they were not immune to the sun's rays. They began to smoke and falter. I was running out of time. You will die tonight, I said, as I drew my silver sword from my back sheath. Marcus hissed at that. Dearest Selina, would you kill your only brother? I gasped. Now you're just trying to stall for time. He laughed at that. You mean you haven't figured it out yet? You are not my brother. Haven't you been reading the journal? Before I could say more, a blur crossed my line of sight. Then Marcus was in a headlock by Saju. You killed my brother, he screamed. He had nicks and cuts all over his arms, and his shirt was torn to shreds. His hands morphed in the claws, and he began to slowly twist Marcus's head. And who would your brother be? Marcus asked, with his voice strained. Raja. We sent him to warn Selina. You smell of were-tiger. I am. I don't know what you're doing so far from home, but I haven't come across your kind in years. I didn't kill your Raja, but I bet he would have made a tasty snack. Saju paused, confused, and that was Marcus's chance. He broke out of the were-tiger's death grip and spun to punch Saju in the jaw. He used all of his supernatural strength, breaking Saju's neck. He fell to the floor and his side paralyzed. I screamed for the vampires to kill Marcus. Then Saju was yelling something at me. I felt a presence behind me and turned in time to face 3 of Marcus's henchmen. They grabbed me and dragged me from the room to the head of the stairs. I shook one of them off and swung back to slash at the others with my sword when I felt a hot piercing in my stomach. I looked down, and a knife was sticking out of my belly. One of the bastards had stabbed me. A red stain of blood was spreading down the front of my shirt. Momentarily stunned, the remaining 2 henchmen picked me up and threw me down the stairs. The last thought I had in my mind was for the vampires to chase Marcus to the ends of the earth and destroy him. Thank you for listening. Tune in, same time, same place next week for more of the tale of blood magic.